Hey, this is Rick, and welcome to another HTML5 game development tutorial using the TypeScript programming language. Why TypeScript? Well, TypeScript is awesome. It is everything that's coming in JavaScript and more. So it lets you use a lot of features that are coming in like ECMAScript 2016 or 2015 today, and it's fantastic. It compiles into JavaScript, so you can use it now with and output to a version of JavaScript that will work on modern browsers, as opposed to having to wait for a lot of these features to come. So anyway, today we're going to be covering mouse input basics on the HTML5 canvas, and um, basically this will be if you're writing a game, a canvas game, and you want to have, say, a button, or to be able to drag and drop, an item in, say, an inventory or something like that. We'll be covering some really basic mouse input stuff. So anyway, to start off with, what we're going to do is put together our basic generic game loop here. So this is basically, we need a canvas and a context if we wanted to create a canvas game. And the canvas in HTML is going to be this. We're going to make it 1280p, and we're going to set its ID to CNVS to be used in the TypeScript over here. So we have a real basic game loop that's going to be calling request animation frame on itself. That'll let us render, basically draw to the canvas every time the canvas renders a frame. And down here we have our Windows on load function, which is going to have to set this canvas variable we have up here to what it is in the document by using the getElementById. And then from that, we're going to have to get a context, and that's when we call the game loop. Now, let's start out by just being able to click on the canvas and have that output to an alert box. So this is what the function is going to be. It's not going to do anything just yet. I have to add another line, but this mouse down function will get passed in a mouse event. And inside that mouse event are going to be an X and a Y value. And that is going to be where on your web page you have clicked where on your whole web page have you clicked this web page, And so we're going to want to know not where on the web page, but where on the canvas we've clicked this. And actually, let me look for some code, because I had found this out a little bit late. You also have to adjust for, if someone has scrolled down the page. So let me grab another little bit of code here, and paste this guy in. So, when you have, we can't do this either. We can't do minus equals. What I'm going to have to do is up here where we actually set it, instead of initially setting it to event. What I want to do is I want to say the event x equals, or the x value is equal to event x minus the canvas offset left. And we only need that because I'm not going to put in any horizontal scrolling. It will have to be different if you want to have some horizontal scrolling on your web page, but everyone advises you not to do that, including myself. So we also want this guy here for our y value, minus. So sorry to be adjusting this on the fly. I just kind of realized from my notes I hadn't corrected this yet. So when we set our x value, we're going to want to set that equal to the event that comes in, the x that comes in, minus wherever our canvas is on the web page, right? So this canvas offset, is going to be where it is from the top of the, where that canvas is located on the page. Now, if you actually have to scroll to get to your canvas, you also need to add in this page offset y, this window.page offset, or page y offset, because that means you've scrolled down the page. If you have no scrolling, if your canvas is just going to be, say, on a page by itself, this won't come into effect. And for a while I was doing without this whole window.pagey offset, because You only need it if you have it like way down your page and you have to scroll to it. But I happen to notice that if I scrolled to my page and then clicked on the web page or clicked on the canvas, it wasn't working anymore. And that's because you need to include this window.page y offset in order to make that work. But this will give you the x and y coordinates on your canvas that you clicked, and then we're just going to alert them out to to the little alert box that'll pop up and tell you what those are. Incidentally, if you're going to have horizontal scrolling, you're going to have to put in plus window dot page y page x offset. You don't really need that most of the time because most people would recommend against having any sort of horizontal scrolling on your page. But if you do, you will need to have this, page X offset in order for it to work. And then we're just going to alert that out. Now this won't work yet. If I run this and I try and click on the canvas, nothing's going to happen because we haven't set up this mouse down as any sort of callback yet to any sort of event. So I'm going to have to go back to my samples and grab this guy, which is going to be an event listener on our canvas. And let me paste you in. Okay, so what this does is I've added an event listener to the mouse down event, calling this mouse down function up here. So these guys, this is calling this. And I'm now forgetting what the false is. I'll have to look to see what that might be bubbling or something like that. What is it? Do I have, okay, use capture. I don't think I need that. But I'm going to leave it in just in case I do because I can't remember. I'll have to look that up. Anyway, let me run this. And now we just have all this black is what our canvas is. So if I click here, it tells me where I clicked is x equals 689 and y equals 292. And if I click up here, x equals 11, y equals 11, down somewhere close to the bottom, x equals 1278, y equals 716. So, this is basically letting me click anywhere on the canvas and just telling me what the x and y coordinates of what I'm clicking are. So that's just for starters. Now we're going to have to set up something to actually draw that we want to click. So, I've covered drawing in other lessons, but other tutorials. But let me just go over some real quick stuff. I'm going to need to create like an iDraw interface, and this is just going to be something, since I'm going to have multiple objects that I want to draw. I'm going to create this interface, and everything that I want to draw to the canvas is going to need to have an x coordinate, a y coordinate, and a function in it or method called draw. And that will let me draw it to the canvas. And I'll have to implement that in all of them. And then I need an array of all the stuff that I might potentially want to draw, since I'm going to be drawing several things. So then I'm going to need to, within my game loop, I'm going to actually need to loop over all these guys and actually draw them. So, I mean, this is stuff I've covered earlier, but this is basic object-oriented programming with interfaces. I've covered it earlier, just explaining what interfaces are. That just means that anything I want to draw to the canvas, I'll have to call it iDraw, and I will have to put these attributes and methods inside that class. So now that I have that, I need to put together a simple button. So let me grab my button class, and that button class is going to implement the iDraw interface. So it's going to have an x and y value. And basically, the button class is going to draw a rectangle with some text in it to the screen. So I have to have some features in this guy, like what font size am I going to draw this text. I think I just default it to a red color. I don't give you the option of changing that, but you could set that up, with another attribute here called color if you wanted to. It would be a string, and you could pass in any valid color into your constructor and have it set that string, but we didn't do that. So basically, it has an X and a Y coordinate. It's got a width and a height for the rectangle. It's got text that you're going to draw in the middle, and it's got a font size. And all the constructor here does is set up those values, up here into this. And then we also want a half width and half height. And the reason we want that is because I don't actually want to draw the rectangle. The default when you're drawing a rectangle is to have the top left corner be at these X and Y values. And I don't want that. I actually want the center of this button to be at this X and this Y value. So I'm using this half width for that purpose, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the half width from the X and the Y value, and then I'll add the half width to the X and Y value when I go to draw the rectangle associated with this guy. And then in draw, we start out by drawing the text, and we just want this text to be centered completely, both horizontally and vertically on that point. So I set this ctx.textAlign. This is my context, and I'm setting the text align and the baseline, to center and middle. I'm setting the fill style to red, which is why I'm going to have to do separate save and restores in here, because fill style for the rectangle will actually make the rectangle itself red, and we don't want our text to be the same color as the center of the rectangle. We want like a red outline for that rectangle, not a red fill color. So then I set the font size to this font size in pixels, and I use Verdana. You could use whatever font you want there that happens to be available in your web browser. Then I use the fill text to fill the text at the X and Y coordinate, passing in the text that I called the constructor, I set in the constructor, and the X and Y values that I set in the constructors. Okay, then down here, I'm just drawing the rectangle, and I'm drawing the rectangle from the X position minus the half width and the Y position minus the half height, and giving it the width and the height after that. Because normally this here is the starting position, the top left corner of these two coordinates are the top left corner of your rectangle, and then you pass in the width and height, and that's how a rectangle is drawn. And that's why I had to have this half width and half height. Otherwise, if I didn't have that, if I didn't have this, it would start the corner. The corner would be started in the center of our text, and we don't want that. Okay. So the other thing. Okay. All right. So this I guess isn't going to do anything just yet, because I need to add something in here to actually create it. So I've just got this C button, and what I want to do is, since I want this guy to draw, I need to add it to the draw array. Let me grab this code, and let's just give this guy a try to make sure he's drawing. So .push. So we're going to add a new C button, and we'll give it 200, 200. Let's see. What should we give its width? Let's give it also 200 a width. All right. Rather than do 200, 200, 200, let's say 100, 100, 200 for the width, height of 50, and text of button. What about hello? That sounds better. All right. So that should actually, if I'm doing this right, it should actually create a new button, push it into the draw array, which, having it in the draw array, if you remember up here in the game loop, we loop over the draw array and actually draw anything in it. So that's what's going to cause this thing to render if it works. Let me see. Is it working? Yep. All right. Hello. I should push that over a little more. This isn't really doing anything. I can click anywhere on the screen and it's still displaying that alert. So the next thing we're going to have to do is actually tie that guy me put this at X150. The next thing we're going to actually have to do is somehow set this up so that it's doing more than just drawing a button, because it's drawing a button, but it's not really, doing anything at this point. The stuff that's doing something is this click on the canvas, and that lets you click anywhere, really anywhere in the browser window, not even just anywhere on the canvas. So now we have to set this up so that we can actually, click the button. So inside our C button code, we need a new attribute called down, and it's going to be a Boolean. So basically, if you're currently clicking down on the button, this is going to be set to true. Otherwise, it's going to be set to false. And that's really all it's doing. So then we also need a mouse down and a mouse up method to get called whenever a mouse down or mouse up event happens on the canvas. So this if statement here is saying, or this statement here, basically we're getting this canvas offset, and I once again I need to include this guy at a bare minimum because I forgot that. Paste. All right, so this here is getting the X and Y coordinates on our canvas that I just clicked. This first part. Then I need to figure out, okay, am I actually clicking on this button? And that's what this if statement does. It's comparing the X to, the half width. Is it between the X and Y values? Is it greater than the minimum X value? Is it less than the maximum X value? Is it greater than the minimum Y value? Is it less than the maximum Y value? So does the place that I click fall in that rectangle? And if it does, I set this down flag that I created up here to true. And if I get a mouse up event, I set the down flag to false. Because if you think about it, you can click down in the button, but if you click up anywhere outside of that button, like in or outside of that button is no longer down. Otherwise, what you have is a situation where you click down in the button, and if you move your cursor off to the side and then release it, if I had an if statement like this, then this down flag would be false. Now, if you want to know, if you want something to happen in this button when someone actually mouses up in the button, you have to have this this in here, this like if statement, but you don't want the down equal to false. In here you have, do something when the user mouses up inside the button. And of course you also need those X and Y variables if you're going to do it that way. So these guys also need to be there. So this part of the code here that I just put in is actually doing absolutely nothing right now. So I'm just going to get it out. But if you wanted something to happen when someone moused up inside the button, you would put that code here. But for right now, we're not going to bother with that. If you mouse up and the button is no longer clicked. So we're going to do, basically we're just going to detect is the mouse down and is the mouse up and set those values. Okay, so now we actually need some sort of event. We need to tie these two functions into some sort of event listener, which we're not currently doing. And the place we're going to do that is within that constructor, because when you create this button, you want to add those event listeners because you want it to start listening as soon as you create this button. So we've added to the canvas an event listener, mouse down, and it's going to call this mouse down, and mouse up, and it's going to call this mouse up, and that are these guys. And then whenever you create a new button, the same thing is going to happen. So now the up and down flag, you know, are going to get called, is going to get set when you mouse down and mouse up. But that's not really doing anything, you know, right? So let's get rid of that previous alert up here. So we don't really care if someone mouses down on the canvas anymore. So we can get rid of all this code here because we don't need that. And we don't need to add that event listener anymore. So we only want to know if someone, you know, is clicking down on our button. We don't care if they're clicking down just at some random place on the canvas. So what we will do is we'll just throw an alert here. So it's the same alert, but now it should only happen if you're clicking the button. So let's run this. And anywhere here, click, 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 nothing. If I click on hello, I get my alert. Okay, perfect. So, you know, and it's anything from this top corner down to this bottom corner should trigger that alert. Okay, so let's do something a little more interesting than just have it firing off an alert. Normally when you click down on a button, it looks a little different. You know, that's kind of a UI thing. You click down and the way it looks changes. So we're going to go into Draw and we are going to change the way the text looks when, can I just highlight this, please? There we go. We're going to change the way the text looks when you click down. So if that down flag is true, then we're going to set the alpha to half so that it's going to look darker. And we're going to bump it down by a couple pixels and over by a couple pixels. Now that's just for the text. We also have to do that to the rectangle. So let me grab some more code and go down to where the rectangle is and paste you in. Okay, so now if the player clicks down, you know, we should see that button shift down a couple pixels and over a couple pixels and look less bright red. So let's see if that worked. So I click and yep, look, it's like I'm clicking a button. Hey, fantastic. Okay, so that's a basic button and that may be all you want. But we're going to take it a little bit further by creating a drag button and a drag and drop, a real basic drag and drop interface. So let's see. I've got this drag button that I've created and it is basically, it starts out as a copy of the regular button, you know, the button we just made. So let me grab this text. Okay, actually, I'm going to do this differently. So the first thing I need to do if I want to add a drag button before I even copy and paste, you know, the text, is I need to know where the cursor is at all times. So I'm going to need some sort of cursor X and cursor Y variable because I need to know as I'm dragging around this button where the cursor is at that moment. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a couple of variables, cursor X and cursor Y. And that is basically just so that I can at any time grab these global variables and know where my cursor is at that moment. And the next thing I need to do is create something that actually tracks that cursor. So 1 second, I'm going to take a quick drink. Mouth's getting dry. Anyway, so, you know, you don't need to create the event listener for that. What I did is just override the document on mouse move event with this new function, and I'm grabbing and I guess this is doing the same sort of thing, but it's more of a JavaScripty way of doing it. So the document on mouse move event handler is now going to be this, function that I create right here that is basically going to take the cursor X and cursor Y and set that to the event X and event Y. And, I need to do the same thing that I've been doing all along. And I keep forgetting to do this because I discovered it late in the game. But really, I need to do the same thing I did with this. So, except I want to do it to cursor X and cursor Y. So rather than have the variable X, I do cursor X and cursor Y. That's another nice thing about TypeScript, by the way, is, Microsoft Visual Studio community works fantastic with it. It does all your code completion, which is just amazing. I know there are JavaScript tools that do that too. I used to use WebStorm, but I'm just amazed that Visual Studio community is free and it just works so well. So anyway, my little plug. So cursor X and cursor Y, we're setting those values here just whenever the player moves the mouse around. So now let's copy that button that we had. And we're going to rename this guy to C drag, because it's going to be our drag button. C drag. All right. Except what we want to do while the mouse is down, we want to change the X and Y coordinates of this guy. So we're going to add in this. So if the mouse is the mouse is currently down on this button, we're going to have it follow the cursor. We don't need, well, I don't know if we should have it look like that. Anyway, let's see how this looks just as it is. What we need to do actually before that is add a drag button to that draw array. That way it'll actually get drawn. We'll give it, all right, so we'll push it over quite a bit so it's not right there, and we will call it drag. All right, so let's see if this works and how it looks. All right, so if I grab the drag button, oh, hey, I can drag them around and then drop them wherever I want. Drag, drop, drag, drop, drag, drop. Okay, now that's not all that useful. And the reason it's not all that useful is because, I mean, it could be for some things, but for the most part, when you use drag and drop, you have an interface and you'll have some sort of drop target. Like this might be armor, and you'll want to drop it onto some dudes, like chest or whatever. So you have some target that you want to drop that onto. So now we need to actually finish this off so that it's a real drag and drop interface. So what we need is some sort of target list. Because these drag buttons, they need to know where they can potentially be dropped. So we're just going to create a generic array. And there are better ways to do this if you want to get really deep into it. But this will work fine for right now, or for a very simple interface. Now we don't actually have any drop target class yet. So I'm just going to copy and paste it. It's very similar to our our button and our drag button that we created before. I started out by copying and pasting that, and then I tweaked it. There are better object-oriented ways to do things than copying and pasting. If you find yourself copying and pasting a lot, you may want to have some sort of abstract class or base class that you inherit, but I just didn't take the time to do that because this is kind of throwaway code. I'm more interested in I'm defending myself here, but I'm more interested in demonstrating just how to do the basics of mouse input with this tutorial than teaching you the best way to implement this stuff from an object-oriented perspective. If you were going to do a full-blown UI, you would definitely want to spend more time thinking out, what classes you want to use as your base class and what should be in those. I didn't take the time to do that because I'm just trying to teach the basics here of the mouse input and buttons and such. All right, so this new drop target, it's got all the familiar things like font size and text. We made the font size much smaller because I'm going to make the drop targets smaller. And the other thing we have is this hidden. If something's on top of this guy, he has to be hidden. Because the way we're drawing things right now, you'd be able to see it right underneath. But if someone drops something on this, it's got to be hidden. And so we're going to draw this guy, and all I have here basically is like, I don't have anything that is currently putting something else on top of it yet. So the other thing we want to do is we need to go back and change our drag class. Because a lot of times if you have a drag and drop interface and you try and drag something to some place it's not supposed to go, it doesn't just stay wherever you drop it. It returns to its last X and Y position prior to you starting to drag it. So we need to have a last X and a last Y value in there. And we also need to change our mouse up event quite a bit. And the way we need to change that mouse up event is to find out if we're dropping this on top of another target. And if we are, then we need to have it stick. And if not, we want to return it to its last X and Y coordinates. So let me go grab this code. Sorry this is taking so long. Someone was calling. I'll probably get a message. That'll be terrible. All right, so here's our mouse up code here. Current target. I'm getting some errors. Why is that current target not working? Do I have a current target that I'm missing? All right, the mouse up code. So what we're going to do is go through the target lists. Oh, I need to add a current target. So the other thing we need to know is there currently something that, I can't believe I missed this. Is there currently something that it is on top of? Because you need to know, when you're dragging and dropping, these guys. There's my C button. I'm getting confused here, sorry. If it's currently on top of a target. Because if it is, you might have to stay there. So let's scroll back down to the mouse up. All right, so to walk through this, we're getting our X and Y values like we normally do. Of course, I need to add this piece in like I've always been. Got an extra. So the window offset page, in case you scroll. Only necessary, this is only necessary if you've got, your canvas below, if you're scrolling down to your canvas. All right, so, as I'm dragging this, all right, this is the mouse up. So if we're mousing up within the bounds of this particular button, then we need to loop over all of our potential targets, which was our target list that we defined earlier. I don't need this console.log thing. That was for debugging. So we want to know, are we overlapping? Is this button overlapping with our target on the x coordinate? Is it on the x axis? Is it overlapping with this button on the y axis? So and the way we do that is, is this x less than the temp target's x? If it is, then, is this x plus the half width greater than the temp target minus its half width? So this is basic rectangle collision detection. We're looking to see if they're overlapping on the x, overlapping on the y, and if you want to know more about rectangle collision detection, I actually covered that pretty thoroughly in some basic collision detection classes or tutorial earlier. So later we have to check, are we overlapping on both the x and y coordinate? If we are, then we need to set the x value to the temp target's x value and the y value to the temp target's y value. We now need to set the last x to where we are at this moment, because the next time we drag it, that's going to be the last x. And then we need to set our current target equal to this temp target, and we need to set the temp target hidden to true. So, basically, if we are overlapping, then that's what we do. Otherwise, we set our current target hidden to true, which means we hide where we are, where we were before, and then we jump back to that position. If we didn't have a current target down here, then we just go back to whatever the last x and y coordinates are. So this is what happens here if you don't hit anything in your drag target. So let's add a couple drag targets. Do I got a couple drag targets that I could just grab? Because I don't remember where I had placed them. Oh no, I guess I called them drop targets. So let's see, let's copy this guy. We also have to add those into the draw array. So here are drop targets. Hopefully they don't collide with anything. Let me run this, see if it works. Come on, baby. All right, so we have a drop target 1 and a drop target 2. So if I try and drag this and I just let it go, oh, it just disappeared. Why did it do that? Let me just see if this works if I drag. All right, that works, but then they're not coming back. So I must have missed something. When you're dragging this and releasing it someplace else, the last x and last y must not be set to anything interesting. Okay, so what did I do wrong? Here's my drag. Did I set last x and last y? No, it doesn't look like I did. That's what I did wrong. So we'll say this dot last x equals x, and this dot last y equals y. Let's see if that gets rid of our first problem. Yeah, it goes back. All right, so that was the problem. I never set that initial value for last x and last y. However, I still have this issue where they go away, and when I start dragging them, they don't come back. So there's something I'm doing wrong here, and I bet you that is about them being hidden and not being unhidden. So let's see. When I mouse down here, I should also check to see if I have a current target. If this dot current target not equal null. So if there is a current target, I want to make sure that target is not hidden. This dot current target dot hidden equals false. All right, let's see if that does that. Sorry about the bugs. Sometimes it's fun to walk through them though. All right, so drag that guy around. He's not sticking anywhere. He's going back to where I had him. Drop. Moment of truth. Yep. All right, he comes back. I can drop him on target 2. I can drag this guy off to the side. He goes back to the drop target 2. I can drag this guy over here. So anyway, those are some basics of mouse input. I'm going to have the code all posted on TypeScriptGames.com. And if you have any questions, I'm at TypeScriptGames on Twitter. All right, hope you enjoyed this, and let me know what you think.